Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
Okay, we're just asking a question here of the staff. I'm going to ask you, and if anybody wants to call and give me your answer to this, have at it. We all know that the Trump campaign is continuing to actively, I don't want to use the word complain, but they're being very critical of the Colorado process. Okay? So my question is this. The Colorado process has been known for months and months and months. Why? I'm serious here. I'm not trying to make a point with it. I'm actually asking a question. Why not complain about this 2 months ago? Why not call attention to it last month, 2 weeks ago, 2 months ago? Why wait until after the results to start complaining about how it was rigged? It's not as though something happened in Colorado that nobody knew was going to happen. It's not as though they changed the rules in the middle of the process during the weekend. So why complain? Why call attention to it now? Why not do so a month ago? Why not back in September, October, or whenever the Trump campaign found out how Colorado was going to manage its affairs here during the primary? Greetings, my friends. Welcome to the EIB Network. Rush Limbaugh back at it here another 3 hours. The telephone number is 800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushmo@eibnet.com. I guess one of the biggest bits of news that's out there now is that apparently a member of the Republican National Committee, a guy by the name of Randy Evans, was on MSNBC this morning. We have a ban on anything that happens there. And I'm not going to lift the ban. I don't need the ban lifted. This guy said on MSNBC this morning, if Donald Trump exceeds 1,100 delegates, then he's going to get the nomination. If Donald Trump exceeds 1,100 delegates, he will become the nominee, even though he may not have 1,237. Well, this has caused a lot of buzz. People are asking, wait a minute, what does this mean? There are any number of possibilities. Does this mean, is this guy speaking for the whole committee? And has the committee internally decided that if Trump gets that close, 1,100, they're just going to scrap the 1237 rule and hand it to Trump? Or does he mean, hey, if he gets to 1,100, there's no stopping him no matter what anybody tries to do? Does he mean that? Or does he mean something else? And everybody's digging deep, trying to find out exactly what Randy Evans meant. And apparently somebody named Caitlin Huey Burns, Real Clear Politics, tweeted out, just got off the phone with Randy Evans, the Republican National Committee, and he said the 1237 number is not flexible, only that if Trump is close, that he can wrangle enough unbound delegates. So, I hate to be the bearer of what some might consider bad news, but this does not constitute an official change of the rules from the RNC and the convention. It's just happening as one committee member goes on TV today and says, hey, if Trump gets to 1,100, it'll be a snap to get to 1237. All he's got to do is go and get 137 unbound, 117 unbound delegates, whatever it is, and he got it in the bag. So the guy was not saying that the RNC is going to modify the 1237 rule and count 1,100 close enough to say it's a done deal. He's simply saying if he gets that close, it's going to be easy for the Trumpster to go out there and make up the difference. The Washington Post has a story today saying that the Cruz campaign is working diligently to make sure that Trump does not get to 1237 on the second ballot, much less the first. So it remains unsettled. We have polling data coming in from New York where Trump continues to poll way, way, way out in front of anybody else. But I want to do something here before we go back and get into the nuts and bolts and the dirt and the grime of the entire process here. Because I've got 4 sound bites that are interesting. They are sound bites that go to the human side of both Trump and Cruz. One of them is Alan Dershowitz, who taught law to Ted Cruz at Harvard. And Dershowitz has always said that Cruz was the smartest student he ever had, the most challenging student he ever had, bar none. Dershowitz has made it plain that nobody has ever come close in intelligence, brains, all of that, to Ted Cruz, anybody he's taught at Harvard. On the other side, CNN last night did they sat down with the Trump family. And the Trumpster was there. And it showed the Trump family interacting and the women of the Trump family just totally enthralled and respectful and in love with Donald. And a number of people say, you know what, this is great. We see a side of this guy that we've never seen before. This is great. This is great. So, and I think this is healthy and helpful to have the opportunity to illustrate I hate this term, the human side, because what are they? Not mongoloids. They're humans. But, in the common vernacular here, when people talk about the humanity of somebody, usually talk about their liberalism. And, of course, that's not what I'm talking about. But you just get them out of the daily grind of what they're doing, in which every candidate adopts a persona, a stage presence. The good ones do. So let's get started with Dershowitz. This was on Fox News last night. Megyn Kelly interviewing Alan Dershowitz. Two soundbites. She said, you taught Ted Cruz when he was a young whippersnapper. What was your impression of him?
Everything I said, he challenged me. He was one of the best students I ever had because a teacher loves to be challenged. I used the Socratic method. Everything I said, he disagreed with. I was against the death penalty. He's in favor. I was in favor of the exclusionary rule. He's against it. And he made such brilliant arguments that I never had to play the devil's advocate.
Even as a law student, he was there. He had that sort of thinking.
He had been a champion debater at Princeton, and he and his Princeton roommate sat next to each other, and he was an African-American, a black kid from Jamaica, two of the most brilliant guys at Harvard Law School, and they were inseparable, and they had a team tag match. One guy finished, the other guy would raise his hand.
Whoa, it's a double whammy here. First we got Dershowitz, who is a well-known leftist, a proud card-carrying leftist, admitting that the most brilliant law student he has ever come across was Ted Cruz. And then the bonus that Cruz's best buddy was a black guy who was just as smart as Cruz, and that they were a tag team here in the debate. And one of them would finish, the next guy raised his hand, and they would keep on as a team, and they just slammed anybody got in their way. There was no defeating these guys. And Kelly said, did you know what Ted Cruz's politics were at the time?
His politics were clear, principled, unwavering, and very intelligently presented.
You said he was one of the smartest students you ever had. Is that true or is that hyperbole?
No, it's true. And in fact, I got a lot of criticism from my friends on the left saying, why are you saying that? I'm a professor. I have to tell the truth about my students, even if I disagree with their views, even if I'm not going to vote for him. I'm not going to change history.
His politics were clear. We're talking about a early 20s student. He went about consistency. I mean, this goes to, here's who the guy is. He is who he says he is. He is who he appears to be. His principles are his principles. They have been for his whole life. He doesn't make anything up here. He's not manufacturing it as he goes. This is who he is. Clear, principled, unwavering, intelligently presented. A lot of his leftist buddies are ripping him for saying these things about Cruz. He says, hey, I'm a professor. I can't lie about my students. Okay, so that's Dershowitz and Cruz. And that's, you'd have to admit, now it's effective testimony, but it's validation, confirmation from somebody who doesn't agree with Cruz in any way, shape, manner, or form. And it debunks all the caricatures that are out there of Cruz from the left, somebody who many leftist Democrats, Dershowitz, they admire to the hilt. Now to the Trump side of this. There was a show last night on CNN called a Trump Family Town Hall. And they had Trump and Melania and some of the kids, who are now adults, some of the kids, even had Tiffany Trump there. I think the only Trump that wasn't there was Barron, the youngest. I'm not sure. But it's fascinating. So on CNN today, they're reviewing it, what happened last night. The host, Michaela Pereira, spoke with two people who attended last night's Trump family town hall, Joseph Kovac and Arlene Ting. And during the discussion about their experience at the event, the hostess here, Michaela Pereira, said, I understand that this is the first time you've had the opportunity to do this sort of thing, show up at an event like this. And Joe Kovac, I understand you actually found that your vote has been swayed by what you saw last night.
It has. Last night, I saw Donald Trump in a different light. I saw how he interacted with his children. I saw that interaction. Being a Republican and tending to be more conservative and being from Staten Island, I agree with a lot of the positions that Donald has taken. I also feel that tone is very important.
I guess so. We'd assume he was not supporting Trump. Now he is because of the interaction that he saw with his children last night. You know, let's go and play the second bite, and I'll share with you an observation. This next one is Michaela Pereira saying to Arlene Ting, Arlene, this idea of tone. Was it something that bothered you going into the event, that you wanted to find out where Trump's head was? And Chris Cuomo, you'll also hear him trying to swivel into this soundbite here.
You always wonder if someone with this type of personality can kind of turn it off at times. And it was reassuring to me that he had said that he was nicer to his family rather than what we've seen at the debates, despite, all of the incendiary remarks that he has made. I was thinking maybe he would comment that he was a disciplinarian or very critical towards them, but for him to admit that he was nicer towards them was actually reassuring, because he's a father, he's a husband, he's a grandfather as well. I still feel that I'm undecided. It kind of gives a different perspective when you see them talk amongst their family.
This always amazes me. I'm always trying to understand how people think, how they react to things they see on TV. It's always going to be a learning exercise. So, plus I know Trump personally, and Trump is not. Well, in business he can be, but it amazes me. People can watch Trump interacting with his family and say, "Wow, I'm shocked." What do you expect? His family's out there all the time. His family loves him. That's why does it surprise people that Trump's family doesn't think that he's a fire-breathing, satanic figure? Why is it a surprise when people get together with their family on TV and everybody seems to love and respect each other? Why is that a surprise? No. I understand that some people's family experience is not the best and so forth. I mean, these guys are on television a lot. Is it really that hard to figure out who these people are? Especially Trump. Trump's been on TV all over the place. Can people not spot what the shtick is, what the act is, and where the real guy is? It always amazes me how people can't always... Look at myself, too. It never fails. Even after 27 years, I find myself in a public situation and talking with people. Well, I'll give you that. I went to dinner 3 weeks ago with a couple of friends in New York, and they were visiting down there. They were being hosted by a resident here I've never met. And they told me their host was hesitant to come because she was afraid that I would be walking into the restaurant, looking at liberals and pointing to them and say, "Get out." She was afraid that I was a bull in a china shop kind of, and so we said, and after about, she didn't say a word for the first 10 minutes. After the first 10 minutes, she says, just, I can't believe you're one of the nicest people I've ever, you're one of the most engaging, and I'm sitting there, what do you say to that? Of course, but it's the power. I know what it is. It's the power of public image, presentation, and so forth, but it seems that there is seldom any assumption or benefit of the doubt. Like I am. The same thing works with Cruz. You have Cruz, who appears to be an automaton when it comes to his campaign. He's focused. He is never off message, never off point. And people routinely say when they meet him how shocked they were that he's actually a normal person. It just always... Why is it a surprise when public figures are seen as normal? Anyway, it's an ongoing learning exercise for me. I'm not being critical of it. It's a fascinating thing. And I think these two sound bites illustrate it. Here's Dershowitz saying things about Cruz that nobody else, there's not a single Republican out there talking this way about Cruz. Maybe his wife, of course, but I mean, you don't have anybody that knows Cruz on the Republican. Everything about Cruz, he's hated, he's despised, the Senate doesn't like Cruz. Go talk to his law professor, smartest guy ever. Same thing with Trump. Just interests me. We'll take a timeout, be back, and continue right after this, folks. We're just getting warmed up here. So
America's most listened to talk radio host.
Rush Limbaugh.
On the EIB network.
Yeah, looking for something here. Hang on just a second. It's a healthcare story because here we go. I need you to have audio soundbite 16. We have a Heidi Cruz bite. This should have been part of the 4-part little soundbite expose we just did. Heidi Cruz last night was on the Kelly file as well with Megyn Kelly, who said Donald Trump sent out an unkind retweet about you, comparing your appearance unfavorably to that of his wife, Melania, who is a retired model. Everybody thought that was just horrible, Heidi. It was just despicable, and it was crass. And how did you first learn about that?
I don't tweet, so I had an ability to completely ignore it. And I think we have a pattern of behavior here that when Donald Trump is falling behind.
Yeah, but that's a dodge. Like, who told you about it and how it made you feel?
You and Carly, my dear friend Carly, and myself have been the object of some of Donald's criticisms. But I will tell you, I know why we're running this race, and it's not for Donald Trump. It is for the voters of this country. And when you have a husband who's standing by you that is so strong and so unflappable, it really gives me a lot of strength. And so I really have to honestly say, it didn't impact me in the least.
That's fascinating. I got to find something real quick. Grab somebody 21. Did you hear what she just said here? She said, when you have a husband who's standing by you that's so strong and so unflappable, it really gives me a lot of strength. That is cool. I want you to compare it. Listen, this is Michelle Maybell Obama. PBS special Monday night series Jackie Robinson, during a segment showing off how hard it was for Robinson to handle being the first African-American in the major leagues. Obama and Michelle talked about, listen to this.
There's nothing more important than family, than a real partnership, which is probably what made him such a great man, because he had the judgment to find a partner that... Well, I think it's true. I mean, I think that's a sign of his character, that he chose a woman that was his equal. I don't think he would have had Jackie Robinson without Rachel.
Okay, so what is the message there? You got Obama sitting right next there, and Michelle said Jackie Robinson we wouldn't have had him without Rachel. That's Michelle Obama saying to Barack, hey, you wouldn't be here if it weren't for me, pal. Contrast that to Heidi Cruz and the way she talked about her husband. We will be back. I want to take you back, turn back the hands of time. Not quite to the graveyard of forgotten sound bites, because this is not that old. It was just 6 days ago on this program in discussing the Republican presidential race and what the establishment might do, who they might turn to, how they might do it, who might the nominee end up being. I warned. I'll give you just a list of names as an example. Ryan, Walker, Romney, Jeb. If you start seeing in the media news stories that are essentially puff piece profiles, if you start seeing news stories about what has Jeb been doing since he got out, and how is Jeb reacting to it, and what's Jeb planning for his future, or about Scott Walker, or about Ryan, if you see news stories where there is an attempt to build the case for somebody. And you wonder, what's this about? He's not. They're floating possibilities. This is where you read between the lines and you figure out what they're trying to pull off. And that's how you can identify if there is somebody that they have singled out that they do want to nominate in a contested convention. Just watch and see which Republican establishment types are getting a lot of news coverage. The kind of coverage that would serve the purpose of establishing a reputation, establishing qualifications, establishing sense of purpose. Yes, might not have made it throughout the primaries, but has learned a lot and has stayed involved, is closely watching events, and wants to do anything possible to help the party. And I was simply asking and advising people to keep a sharp eye, because there's still a considerable body of thought that, and there's two schools on this, that the establishment is going to try to come up with the Karl Rove quote-unquote fresh face. And I don't think anybody should doubt that. It looks like a long shot. I mean, the common sense analysis would be that the Republican nominee is going to be Cruz or Trump. Let me rephrase that. It'll be Trump or Cruz. I'll go in the order in which they stand now with delegates. Because the only possibility of anybody getting at 1237 is one of those two. And so the conventional wisdom has it, it's got to be one of those two, and eventually at some point everybody in the party is going to accept that. The other school of thought is never are we going to accept that, and we're going to go down, we're going to plant a flag, and we're going to be standing, if it's to the last man, we're going to try to deny this nomination to these two outsiders that we don't want anything to do with, and we're going to pick our own guy. And that crowd still exists. They have people trying to make that happen. Many of them run magazines. Well, some of them run magazines. Others are conservative media types who think they have a tremendous amount of power. And then you have the establishment, actual establishment, official Republicans throughout, who I have no doubt will be trying, however dismal the opportunity, they will be trying. So I was just warning, if you want to spot possibilities, just keep a sharp eye on names that seemingly have been eliminated, that nobody would ever think in the current context as a nominee. Start seeing their names all over the place. It could be an indication that the PR effort has begun. So interestingly, yesterday at 3:15, 15 minutes after this program ended, Paul Ryan went out with the fourth or fifth time now that he has said he is not seeking the nomination, and he doesn't want the nomination. Cynics, of which I am not one, cynics have pointed out this is exactly what Ryan did before he became Speaker. He repeatedly denied that he wanted to be Speaker. He knew that there were many Republicans who wanted him to be, so he made them want him even more by telling everybody he didn't want it. So people are wondering if the same strategery has been implemented at this time for a possible presidential draft. Here is Ryan yesterday afternoon at the Republican National Committee building.
Let me be clear. I do not want, nor will I accept the nomination for our party. So let me speak directly to the delegates on this. If no candidate has a majority on the first ballot, I believe that you should only choose from a person who has actually participated in the primary. Count me out. I simply believe that if you want to be the nominee for our party, to be the president, you should actually run for it.
All right, now a cynic could also say, but he didn't address the possibility of a hung convention, so to speak, and a bunch of people begging him to do it. He tried, I think, to imply that that would be the case. But a lot of people think the jury is still out on this. And the reason they do, folks, is because they understand the establishment, who they are, and how tightly they have control over the apparatus. and how difficult it's going to be for them to let go and have either one of these two guys, Trump or Cruz, be the nominee. Because I pointed out yesterday, so many things are different. In a normal primary, the nominee is chosen by virtue of primary elections months before the convention. I think Romney wrapped it up in late May in 2012 in the convention. The convention in 2012 was late, wasn't it? I seem to think it was August sometime. It might have been July. But in most cases, like in 2008, McCain had the nomination wrapped up in February or March, which is why we did Operation Chaos. So the point is, people don't see the delegate selection process. They don't see the transfer of power from party head, chairman of the committee, to the nominee. It just evolves and just happens. In, for example, a normal year, by normal I mean where your nominee is chosen by virtue of primaries and wraps it up early, the nominee becomes the titular head of the party, and the nominee runs the convention. The nominee selects people to sit on the rules committee, and all of the rules that get changed or made, written at the convention, are written under the guise of leadership of the nominee. The nominee chooses who speaks, and on what night do they speak, and on what subject do they speak, and in what order do they speak. And the speeches have to be vetted by the nominee and his circle of advisors, of course. You go back to 1992, Pat Buchanan, as you know, had sought the Republican nomination, and I think even might have won the New Hampshire primary in 1992. But George H.W. Bush was the nominee and granted Buchanan a speaking slot in prime time on Tuesday night of the convention. It was in Houston. It was at the Astrodome. And it was in that speech that Buchanan unloaded on his comments about the culture war. And he unloaded on the political aspects of the militant leftist gay community, for example. And he described, and there was nothing else like that at that convention. And the Bush people were criticized afterwards for granting Buchanan that time and giving him that slot in prime time, and for not vetting the contents of his speech enough. And they figured out that they actually blew it. They allowed Buchanan to have the time. They knew what Buchanan was going to say, and they thought having him go Tuesday night, people would forget it by the time Bush was officially nominated, gave his speech on Thursday. But nobody forgot it because it was the only thing at that convention that was really raucous and had people wired up, because we're coming off the no new taxes, read my lips pledge that had been violated. So Buchanan was the only thing that was electric, and that's what people did remember. And so the establishment back then were fit to be tied. But the point is, Buchanan only spoke because the nominee, George H.W. Bush, relented and agreed to give him this. In this convention, what's going to happen if we don't have a nominee before the convention? Who runs it? Who schedules the speakers? Who gets to speak? Who puts them in order? Who sits on the rules committee? All these, this is what's different this year. So the sausage-making process is happening right out in the open. Everybody sees it. And in a usual year, a normal year, this never is seen, because most of it's not even necessary. The nominee becomes the head of the party. And in some cases, even if the nominee goes on to lose the race for the White House, the nominee is still the power broker of the party until there is, in some cases, another nominee. The guy may slink away and not do much, but his people have still been installed at leadership positions in the party. And, whoever runs the Republican National Committee is going to be somebody that's close to the nominee. None of that is really going to be a factor here. So in lieu of the nominee essentially running the convention, the party is going to this year, i.e. the establishment. And that's why I don't think anybody should think for a moment that these people are just going to sit idly by and not give it the old college try to get somebody from their club as nominee. It could be dramatic. And I could be wrong. It could be that the party will see that, hey, look, it's got to be Cruz or Trump. We can't just disenfranchise either one of these guys and their voters. That's just instant death. But there's some people in the party, remember, who would be perfectly fine with that. And they have publicly said they'd be perfectly fine with Hillary winning if it meant the party remaining in control of people who run it at present. And there's a little story here that ran CNN. Republican leadership advising members to skip Cleveland. A number of high-profile Republicans, fearful of a potential melee in Cleveland this summer, are considering skipping the convention and campaigning back home instead. Have you ever heard of this? I'll give you some names. With the campaign hitting a fever pitch and Donald Trump warning about riots if he is denied the nomination, some House and Senate Republicans are telling CNN that it makes more sense to spend time with voters back home rather than be associated with the drama engulfing the party. You talk about a mistake. This may be the first party convention in years that people actually tune into and want to watch it gavel to gavel. And to not be there in the mix, to be back home with the voters. CNN says even some leading party stalwarts are planning to skip the convention. Asked Tuesday if he was going. Jeb Bush told CNN no. Senator Kelly Ayotte, unlikely, when asked if she would be in Cleveland in the midst of her tough bid for a second term. She got a lot of work to do in New Hampshire. I have my own re-election, focusing on my voters in New Hampshire. I don't think I'm going to go to Cleveland. The decision underscores the dilemma confronting Republicans in being tied too closely to the top of the ticket, particularly incumbents from swing states worried that Trump's divisive candidacy and Cruz's rigid brand of conservatism will doom their chances at keeping power in both chambers. See, what we're hearing now is that the powers that be in the establishment, we don't want to be anywhere near that place. Whoever gets nominated, if it's Cruz, if it's Trump, we don't want to be anywhere near that. Because, ooh, yuck, we'll be tainted by it. You talk about a tactical error. This is incalculable the damage these people will be doing to themselves. We'll be back.
Rush Limbaugh, simply brilliant on the EIB network.
And we start on the phones today in Colorado Springs, Colorado. This is Grace. I'm glad you called. Great day. What's on your mind?
Hi, Rush.
Hey.
Well, I have a lot of questions for you. We've been listening to you since 1997. Oh, my husband corrected me, 91.
Oh.
And so we're Colorado voters, and now we don't agree to the point, they made the rules, this Republican deal thing here. In fact, we know that Cruz was here, and what I'm trying to say is we just don't find that it's right for them to do that and disenfranchise the voters. And secondly, to us, because we've been Republican voters for years, and we're saying is that the more that they try to destroy Trump, the same people are driving people to him. We were Cruz, and now we're Trump.
Well, see, in a way, these things balance themselves out. I know it appears unfair. It looks like it disenfranchises voters. I don't think this is the first time Colorado's done it this way. But it does disenfranchise voters. Voters don't play a role in this. That was the rule going in. The delegates are selected at caucuses and they apply to be delegates and they go out and they get 10 seconds to campaign because there's so many of them that want to get 10 seconds to get put on a slate. But look, it is backfiring in a lot of ways, and it's actually redounding in certain places to Trump's benefit here.
It's just, we just find it so wrong what they're doing, and now I even posted on Facebook another voter here in Colorado that has done with the Republican Party. They're leaving the Republican Party left and right and going to Trump. And
okay, so you were all in for Cruz until this happened, and you got so mad now because Trump got screwed that you're joining the Trump.
No. We had made our decision for Trump some time ago. We had, we just felt like, okay, just because a man says he's a Christian or just because he holds up a Bible doesn't make him one. And we're not believing everything that we are listening to. Because there's so much, first of all, when you listen to the news, I mean, all you hear is nothing but garbage and trash and just trying to destroy each other. And the one thing that really...
Wait a minute, hold it. Garbage... Who's talking garbage about who, too? Who are you referring to, the media or other candidates?
Actually, both. Both. And
well, look what you just did. You just savaged Cruz in your own way. Just because you hold the Bible up and say you're a Christian doesn't mean you... I mean, you're qualified to be on cable news.
Well, the thing is, we even used to be Fox News listeners. We don't even do that anymore. We're just so tired of all of this mess.
I hear this. You do not know how much I hear it. I know exactly where you're coming from. I wish I had more time, but I don't.
You're listening to Rush Limbaugh,
the soundtrack of your conservative life,
on the EIB Network.
No, I already talked about that. Okay. I'll talk about it again. The RNC member, Randy Evans, who said that Trump can win with 1,100 delegates. I'll tell you what he meant. It's not what you think. But you're going to get mad, probably at me, but I can take it. Meeting and surpassing all audience expectations every day. Rush Limbaugh behind the golden EIB microphone here at the distinguished, the prestigious Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Conservative Studies. There are no graduates and there are no degrees, and that's because the learning never stops. It never ends. Telephone number, if you want to be on the program today, 800-282-2882. The email address, lrushbo@eibnet.com. Bernie Sanders. Bernie Sanders starting to figure out that the Democrat National Committee and the Hillary campaign have stacked the deck against him. That it's really, really rigged. In Bernie's case, he is exactly right. Now, Bernie should have known this from the first day he got into the race. Bernie should have known it was going to be rigged before he got into the race. And he may well have. But it's now getting to be ridiculous. He keeps winning. He keeps outraising her. And she keeps piling up all the delegates. And I'm going to tell you, on the Democrat side, folks, you don't hear as much about it because the media is not disposed to exposing snafus and discord within the Democrat Party. But I'm telling you, they have their own equivalent of anti-establishment voters, and it's a large number of people, and they are just as opposed to the Democrat establishment as Republican voters who are opposed to it on the Republican side. Different reasons. Some of them overlap. The primary reason, for example, that Bernie's people are upset with the establishment, they think the establishment is too corporate. And they're exactly right, by the way. I mean, even though they're fringe lunatics, they hate corporate. They despise everything about Western civilization. They despise everything about the founding of this country. And the Democrat Party, they don't think is radical left enough. That Hillary has become corporatized and moderate as opposed to liberal. And they think Hillary's into it for herself, for her and her family's financial enhancement and so forth. So they're in the same point, and there are just as many of them. And they don't tell you much that Hillary Clinton's disapproval, Hillary Clinton's negative numbers, are almost as high as Cruz's and Trump's, almost to the point of canceling it all out. And then the polls vary from time to time, state to state, and even poll to poll. But the latest series of polls show that Cruz and or Trump would beat Hillary. And that's relatively new. And so there is a lot of panic on the Democrats. You just don't see it. You know, it doesn't fit any narrative. There isn't a narrative in the media of Democrats in trouble. That narrative only happens after they lose elections, and it lasts for a couple of weeks, and then they're back to normal. I mentioned earlier in the week, I didn't get a chance to get to it. I don't know if I saved it in this stack or not, but the Huffing and Puffington Post. Yes. Here it is, my friends. The Democrats are flawlessly executing a 10-point plan to lose the 2016 presidential election. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would assume that the vast majority of you in this audience are of the opinion that the Democrats never have doubts, that they're always confident, largely because they have the media on their side, largely because what they believe is never challenged, it's never criticized, it's never ripped to shreds, as everything the Republicans stand for is. So your impression of them is that they're unified and that their primary enemy is us, and that that's what unifies them. And as such, at the moment of truth, they will all come together, and that they're confident and unstoppable. And it's not the case. And this piece in the Huffing and Puffington Post illustrates it quite well. It's by somebody named Seth Abrasion. Democrats flawlessly executing a 10-point plan to lose the presidential election. Point number one. These are the mistakes, the assumptions that they are making that are all wrong. They are assuming that Donald Trump will be the nominee, though it's now clear he won't be. And let me analyze each of these as we go. This guy, Seth Abrasion, whoever he is, thinks that the Democrats are operating on a whole bunch of conventional wisdom theories that are dead wrong. And one of them is that Trump's going to be the nominee. This guy doesn't think he's going to be. And it's going to end up being Cruz or somebody else that the Democrats are not prepared for and are not going to know how to beat. That they're making a mistake of gearing up for one guy and thinking they've got the way to beat Trump in the can, in the bag, it's over, and they're not worried about anybody else, and he thinks they should be. Number two, the Democrats are going to nominate the only person who can reunite the Republican Party once Trump fails to get the nomination, has fractured it beyond repair. So this guy thinks that Trump not getting a nomination is going to blow the Republican Party up sky high to the point that it's going to be in tatters. But then the Democrats are going to come along and unify everybody on the Republican side by nominating Hillary. I hope that he's half right on this. It has been my hope all along that whatever happens on our side, that when it's all over, everybody does focus on the real opponent here, and that's Hillary and what she represents. The third term of Barack Obama, the continuation of the transformation of America into a country it was not founded to be, which means the continuing destruction, the cultural rot, the cultural decay, the attack on religious people, primarily Christians. It's going to ratchet up. It's going to continue. Hillary Clinton has promised to raise taxes $1 trillion. Stop and think a minute. The federal government is en route to collecting $3 trillion in taxes this year. Already $1.46 trillion has been collected. Now ask yourself, how is that possible when we have 94 million Americans not working? How is it possible for almost record tax revenue to be collected? It means people are getting soaked. Folks, it means Obamacare and any number of other things. All the hidden fees and the excise taxes and who knows what. The idea that the middle class isn't paying any taxes is obviously blown to smithereens here. 94 million Americans not working. Unemployment rate is really more like 11 to 15%. And they're still collecting record tax revenues. And even at that, we are going to run a deficit of nearly $500 billion this year. Stop at $3 trillion. That's more than people can understand. It's more than you can contemplate. It's more than you can analogize in ways that would make sense to you. $3 trillion is, number 3 is confusing. It's a small number. Trillion. A billion is 1,000 million. It's incomprehensible. And yet it isn't enough. And in the middle of all this, Hillary Clinton has come out and promised to raise taxes by $1 trillion more. They never have enough, no matter, because at some point it is long ceased to be about raising money. Taxation is not about raising revenue to run the government efficiently and properly. It's about social architecture. The tax code is how liberal Democrats punish achievers. It is how they use the tax code to dissuade a lot of people from wanting to be achievers. It is a subtle way that liberal Democrats impugn the whole idea of success, which they do constantly. If you look at Democrat Party enemies list, it's rich this or rich that. Rich corporation here, rich industry there, rich individual there. Whoever, that's their enemy. But on top of record tax revenue being collected, Hillary wants to add $1 trillion to it. Number 3 on this guy's list of 10 mistakes the Democrats are making. Democrats are on the way to fracturing the party by broadly supporting the Clinton camp's attempts to smear Bernie Sanders and his supporters. Number 4, the Democrats are en route to losing the 2016 presidential race by fatally underestimating the electoral chances of the 2 men now most likely to be the Republican nominee in November, Ted Cruz and John Kasich. And again, whoever's writing this is named Seth Abrasion. Number 5, Democrats are going to screw it up by failing to nominate their most popular candidate, Bernie Sanders. Number 6, they're going to freeze Bernie Sanders out of the picture altogether. This guy is totally into Sanders, and he is convinced the Democrats have written a plan guaranteed to lose by acing him out. Number 8, Democrats are going to lose by doing nothing whatsoever to address the outstanding concerns about the character, integrity, and judgment of the party's frontrunner. In other words, this guy is saying the Democrats are making a huge mistake because they have a flawed human being as their frontrunner. She has no integrity. She has a dubious, questionable character, and her judgment stinks. In other words, the Democrats are choosing her just because she's next in line. Her name is Clinton, and for some reason we owe her. And he thinks it's a death wish. In short, Hillary Clinton appears to blame everyone but herself for the lack of trust the American people have in her. That's a bad look for any politician, both because it ignores the concerns of voters, but moreover suggests a candidate incapable of personal and political growth. There are many things the Clinton camp could be doing right now to rehab her image, and they're doing absolutely none of them. Number 9, the Democrats are overly relying on the media to set the political narrative for the campaign season, further alienating voters who want to vote for a candidate with vision. That's Bernie Sanders. And number 10, they're ignoring the youth vote. So my point in all this is that there is all kinds of friction, all kinds of upset and dissatisfaction on the Democrat side that you're not hearing about. And a lot of people on that side are afraid it's going to manifest itself at the worst possible time. Now, here's Bernie Sanders this morning in Brooklyn. A bunch of union people, a bunch of people are picketing outside a Verizon office in Brooklyn. Bernie showed up.
They want to take away the health benefits that you have earned. They want to outsource decent-paying jobs. They want to give their CEO $20 million a year in compensation. They want to avoid paying federal income taxes. This is just another major American corporation trying to destroy the lives of working Americans.
Yeah, see, let's cheer that. That's absolute insanity. Here we have another major American corporation trying to destroy the lives of working Americans. There's a way to translate that. What Bernie Sanders is alleging here is that Verizon is trying to destroy the lives of their customers. And how much sense does that make? But that's what they tell you. Big oil, big pharma, trying to destroy working Americans. Big auto, that's right. They want to destroy every customer. They want to cream, they want to obliterate, they want to damage every potential buyer of their product. It's absurd. Meanwhile, over here from Investors Business Daily, under Obamacare, insurers are losing money on a product people must buy. How does that happen? Obamacare forces people to buy insurance. If you don't, you pay a fine, and later on you might go to jail. And yet insurance companies are still hemorrhaging money. They're still losing money. How do you, when you have a product the federal government mandates that hundreds of millions of Americans must buy, how do you lose money? Well, there's Obamacare for you. If anybody can figure it out, Barack Hussein Obama. And yet they set themselves up as the experts in virtually every aspect of life. Obamacare requires people to buy insurance, but United Health Group is losing so much money, it is exiting 2 states, leaving 2 states, and 8 co-ops, Obamacare co-ops, 8 more are on the brink. Your health care on government. We'll be back.
This election is not politics as usual, and only America's anchorman can explain it all. Don't miss one word of Rush Limbaugh's flawless election commentary with a membership to Rush 24/7. Listen or watch all 3 hours live or on demand. That's Rush 24/7 at rushlimbaugh.com. You're listening to the EIB Network.
No, what's actually interesting is that the Bernie Sanders voters, they're ticked off. They're ticked off at the failures of liberalism. They don't know it, but that's what's got them upset. They have all this student loan debt. There wasn't supposed to be any. They've got all these healthcare expenses. It was supposed to be free, and everybody was supposed to have it. And there's all this racial strife out there. That was supposed to be ended 7 years ago when Obama got elected. America was supposed to be loved and adored. There weren't supposed to be any more wars anywhere. The military was to have been neutered. None of it's happened. The abject, in-your-face failures of what they believe in is what's got them ticked off. They just don't think of it that way. Liberalism, in their minds, does not fail. It just isn't implemented properly, usually because it's short of funding or some such insanity. Here's Silvana as we head back to the phones in San Diego. Great to have you on the program. Hello.
Hi, Russ. I'm just going to kind of answer the question that you asked. And you said, well, why is Donald Trump acting the way he is now after Colorado?
No. Let me rephrase the question because I'm glad you're answering it. I opened the program today because people are still fit to be tied over what happened to Colorado from the disenfranchisement standpoint, that people there weren't allowed to vote. Colorado, GOP aced them out. But it's been known that that was going to happen, whether you liked it or not, since last August. So why didn't the Trump campaign complain about this a month ago, 2 months ago, last fall? Why'd they wait till after the whole thing happened to complain about it? Why not complain about it before it happens? Why not put pressure on him before this thing goes down the way it went down, and try to influence the outcome? Or maybe what you can do if you go out in front of this thing is you can, in effect, have the results disqualified if you have a good PR effort. Why not do this beforehand? Still wait until after the process is over.
Well, then I don't know, then I'm in trouble, because I was going to say what he's doing right now is he's lashing out because, in my opinion, Colorado and what happened in Colorado exposed him for what he is, the paper tiger. And what does that mean? Well, what you have is not what he claims to be. Number one, rules do not apply to him. And you keep saying that, well, he plays by his own set of rules. Well, hold it a minute now.
Okay. I don't recall ever saying that rules don't apply to Trump.
Okay, well, you say that he plays by his own rules and the rules that, that he sets. Is that correct?
I think you are interpreting what I say in your own way. I have attempted to say that Trump, as an outsider, is not going to play the game according to the way it's always been played, that he's going to remain outside it. If you interpret that as he's going to make up his own rules, fine. I don't want to quibble with you about that.
Okay. Well, my issue is this. Just like you said, the rules were known in advance. He decided to play by his own rules and his own rule book. And for people who say that that's okay, well, the reason I'm revolting against the Washington elite class is that they're playing by their own set of rules. They're not the same set of rules for me. So, Ted Cruz was playing by the rules. Donald Trump chose not to. That was his decision. Another point that I was going to make, Colorado also showed that he does not have a ground game. Well, ground game is another...
Well, but I don't think he thought he needed one. See, that's the key. Okay, Silvana from San Diego. It's interesting. She interpreted me in my comments about Trump in the past as saying he's breaking the rules, playing by his own set of rules. That's not what I ever said. I have never said that Donald Trump is breaking rules. And I've really not said he's not following rules. All I have said about Trump, and I know people are going to interpret this in their own words. If you tell somebody a story, a short story, and they tell three more people, by the time it gets back to you, it's nothing like your version. So I understand that. My point was, and has been about Trump all along, he was unorthodox. He wasn't going to run a standard campaign according to the set procedures that the experts say you have to do it. He wasn't going to play the insider's game. He was going to run his own campaign, being who he is. And by the way, part and parcel of that is not having a ground game. I think that Trump's theory, his philosophy, I think what he intended was to just run away with this and just smother the entire process and not need these ground games anywhere. I mean, where do you need Colorado, you need California, there are a couple other states where you've got to have a delegate selection apparatus, something in addition to winning the popular vote. And I think Trump just figured he was going to skunk everybody winning the popular vote. And it was based on the fact that it was happening at the time. I've heard it referred to as the King Kong approach. Trump was just going to climb the Empire State Building and start swinging from the TV antenna up there and claim everything was his. And it was unorthodox. And it was, I might have even said he wasn't playing by the rules, but what I didn't mean an official rule book. I mean conventional wisdom, standard, ordinary operating procedure. This is how we do it. And Trump, no, I'm not going to do it that way. I am going to say controversial things. I am going to violate political correctness. I am not going to worry about it. I'm going to say what I think. If somebody criticizes me, I'm hitting them back twice as hard. All of the don'ts that the professionals tell you, he's doing them. And that's all I mean. I don't mean he's got a rule book that he's purposely violating. That, don't anybody out there assume that I've ever said that Trump's cheating. I know, frankly, that that's what many of you think is happening to him, that he is being cheated by this odd set of rules, for example, in Colorado. But I really think that Trump thought that he would go to Cleveland with enough delegates by now. I think Trump probably thought he would have this nomination wrapped up by now. I would be very surprised if anybody in the Trump campaign, including himself, thought this was going to go all the way to June. You go back to, he was winning everything, and he was winning by 30 points, 20 points, and this massive lead in every upcoming poll. And then Wisconsin came along. There were some little states that Trump lost, and he lost. Cruz won his home state of Texas, but he even won Rubio's home state of Florida. So it's Wisconsin where the apple cart here has been upset. It was not even Iowa where he didn't go to the debate and lost that. Cruz won that. That could have sidelined the campaign, but it didn't. So I think that the reason that Trump didn't do a set of procedures for Colorado, he didn't think he was going to need to. I don't believe that he didn't know. Because the candidates all are told about these state-by-state procedures. I just think he didn't think it was going to be necessary. He's going to go in there, and even if he doesn't win Colorado, fine, can't win everything, but I'm going to win this thing hands down going away. I think that was what he thought. So all this other stuff wasn't necessary. It's one of the aspects of a campaign that everybody does, and Trump, not me. I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. I'm Donald Trump. I can win without doing that, and I'm going to show you. But since it's happened, and since it appears to have been very disenfranchising, well, there's a score to be made here by claiming you've been cheated. I mean, it keeps your base tightly, steadfastly attached to you. Now, one thing, I want to go back to this United Healthcare thing, because this, folks, is a fundamental question. Stop and think of this. If you ran a business, I don't care what it is, and the federal government came along and passed a law requiring every citizen to buy your product. Let's say your product was tampons. Well, the feminists are trying to make a pitch now that we should all buy them their tampons because it's hygiene and we all have interest in this, and they shouldn't have to buy tampons themselves, that everybody should. Well, you've heard about this, right? We're in the cutting edge. Told you about that before anybody else knew about it. Okay, forget tampons. Let's say you make the iPhone. Let's say you invented and manufactured the iPhone, and the Obama administration comes along and tells the American people, you have to buy an iPhone or you're going to pay a fine, you're going to go to jail. How would you lose money? How could you possibly? You know what your universe is. You know the market is, get the adult population, and you know you have to make at least that many phones, so that's your inventory, because they all have to be bought. It's a matter of law. Somebody has to buy these phones. So you do that, and you still lose money and have to start closing Apple stores. How in the world does that happen? Well, what if at the same time the government is making you give iPhones to some people, like illegal immigrants, like refugees, like take your pick of preferred Obama groups who can't afford these new mandates? What if United Healthcare is being forced to give or provide insurance, pay for essentially insurance for people who are not buying it? I don't know what else explains this, but there has to be. I mean, you might want to chalk it up to mismanagement, but I can't understand that. I can't understand how in the world will you have a product, especially here's a typical United Healthcare plan. A guy and his wife, a two-person family, go out and buy one of the healthcare plans offered. They choose a plan that is in the lowest priced tier or close to it. So they pay $1,000 a month for their premiums. Their deductible is $12,000. So they never, ever use the deductible unless they have something major catastrophic happen. So how in the world is a health insurance, and you know that the prices they're charging are not cheap. You know this. If you're personally buying your own health insurance, then you know what it costs. So $1,000 premium for two people, $12,000 deductible that never gets used, meaning United Health never has to spring for that, because how rare is something going to happen to you that would require health expenses that are more than $12,000, something outside of catastrophic. So what is going on? How in the world can they be losing money? Well, let's also factor that not everybody's obeying the law. This obviously has to be a fact. There's a lot of people who are saying, screw this. You know what? I'm not going to pay it, and I'm going to make you find me to find me. You're going to find me on my tax return? Fine. I'm 20 years old. I don't need it. I don't want it. And if I get sick, I'm going to go to the emergency room. Screw you. I don't want to go to healthcare.gov. I don't want to wander around aimlessly in this bureaucratic maze. I don't want any part of it. And they decide they're going to wait until they get sick, or they've got no choice. Then they go out and buy Obamacare. And then the system gets overloaded, and it becomes an accounting nightmare, because United Healthcare has to report statistics to Obama and the federal government. Everybody's looking over each other's shoulders. And Obama doesn't care whether United Healthcare is solvent or not. He doesn't care. Because Obama will say the same thing. What do you mean? I have just passed a law making everybody buy your product. You're losing money. Don't come complaining to me. But strip it all away. How does it still happen? Maybe Obama's forcing them to, well, we know. We know that they're having to insure people that can't pay for it. Illegal immigrants. We're talking potentially millions of people here. It's total mess. One thing, this is not how you fix it. This is not how you reform healthcare. It isn't working. All these co-ops closing, and now the insurance companies, which are the vehicle to health care, you have to have insurance in order to have health care, and they're still losing money. Only in a communist socialist type arrangement could this possibly happen.
Hear it now. Read about it in the paper tomorrow. Rush on the EIB network.
Talent on loan from God. It's Rush Limbaugh on the EIB network. Here is Bruce in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. I'm glad you waited, sir. Great to have you on the program. How are you doing?
Good afternoon, Mr. Limbaugh. How are you today?
Fine and dandy, sir. Thank you very much.
The first thing I want to say, I'm not the poorly educated, so therefore I'm not a Trump supporter.
Here we go.
I want to talk about the convention rules real quick.
Yes.
For over 160 years, you had to have a majority, 50 plus 1. According to Trump, if he goes in the convention with plurality or most delegates, he should be the nominee. So let's go back to the party of Lincoln, which Mr. Trump even says he's not even as good as Lincoln, but he recognized the Republican Party as the party of Lincoln. In 1860...
Well, it's like he recognizes the art of the deal is not the Bible.
Well, we're going to see how good the art of the deal here is after he doesn't get the majority. But 1860 convention, according to, Seward, after the first ballot, had 74% of the delegates needed on the first ballot to become the nominee, while Honest Abe only had 42%. So according to Trump, Lincoln should not have been nominated. And these are the facts. It took 3 ballots. And if Trump is so good at art of the deal, he should be able to get 1,237 with no problem.
I'm sure that's his plan.
Well, his nickname should be Crying Donald to begin with. He doesn't have the 1237. He's not going to get it after the first ballot. He knows it. Everyone else knows it. He's not going to get it.
I don't think we know this yet. There's too much unknown here. Now, look, I know what's going on. I know what your point is here. That Trump's saying, hey, I'm Trump, and if I'm close enough, give it to me. I've earned it. Everybody wants me. Everybody loves me. I've skunked everybody. I've won everywhere. Nobody can hold a candle. Lion Ted's not even close. Come on, let's get serious. I won this thing. Okay? That's the theory. And he's going to challenge somebody to tell him where he's wrong. And so the retort's going to be, sorry, the rule says 1237. Not 1236, not 1150, not 1100, 1237. Your point is, we have never gone off of that. We've never given somebody the nomination for getting close. And you're right. But what Trump is saying, come on, whatever you have to do to get me to 1237, get there, because we know I'm going to get there because I've skunked everybody. There's nobody even close. You don't have anybody in this party that's even halfway near as loved as I am. Anybody growing crowds like me? No. I can hear it all now. I know exactly what he's talking about. He's also trying in his own ways to either intimidate, impress, influence, or what have you, the powers that be, keep his crowd enthused and so forth. But I think you sell Trump short if you actually think that he believes the rules don't apply to him. I don't think that's the case at all. I think he wants to use whatever powers he thinks he has to get himself to what's necessary, if necessary by acclamation. He'd be more than happy for the convention to say, you know what, Trump, you got 1150 and you're great. And there's nobody here that can stop you. We realize Lion Ted can't stop you. Kasich can't stop you. And Donald, you're our guy. And so let's just go out and find enough people to make it 1237 and make it happen. And I think that he thinks something like that. Do not misinterpret. Now, does anybody think I'm suggesting he break the rules in any of this? Okay, I'm talking about the force of his personality. No, he doesn't think Lion Ted's going to go home. He thinks that other people will choose him over Lion Ted if he's close enough anyway. It's close, but no cigar. It's going to be close and cigar, is the way he's looking at this. Now, we had this story, this guy Ryan Evans, if I got the name right. I do. Randy Evans. Randy Evans on MSNBC today, and he's a Republican National Committee member, and he was on MSNBC, and he said that if Trump gets to Cleveland with 1,100 delegates or more, that he should have no trouble getting a nomination. So everybody said, whoa, is the party officially saying that if he gets there with 1,100 he wins? So people started scrambling. What did this guy mean? Because it got ballyhooed all over the place. Wow, RNC member just said on TV, if Trump gets 1,100, by the time he gets to Cleveland, he's it. Well, that turns out not what the guy meant. Because somebody called him and tweeted what he said on the call. And what he means is, and what he meant was, that if Trump gets to 1,100, goes to Cleveland with 1,100, it's not going to be difficult at all to end up finding another 127 delegates before the convention starts, before the first ballot, to nail it down. He was saying Trump will have the ability to go out and find either from unbound delegates or from any number of super whatever delegates. His point was, if Trump shows up to Cleveland with 1,100, he's not going to have any problem persuading whatever necessary number he needs to join him. That's what he meant. It was not an official change.
With Rush, principles still matter on the EIB network.
It's the fastest 3 hours in media. We only have one more to go, and we have plenty to fill it up, including more exciting criticism from phone call from you. We get right to that. Be back before you know it. I guess have soundbite number 4 ready to go in order. Greetings and welcome back, folks. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh with one exciting, busy broadcast hour remaining. The telephone number is 800-282-2882 and the email address lrushbaugh@eibnet.com. There's some other news out there I want to touch on before we get back to the heated elements of the Republican presidential campaign. 60 Minutes did a story on Sunday. I have been waiting for this. For years, I have been waiting for this. 60 Minutes did a story on Sunday night that left little doubt that the Saudi Arabian government had direct ties to the 19 hijackers that perpetrated the crimes on 9/11. And I can take you back to that day. I can take you back to that day and the ensuing days after, when we learned who those 19 hijackers were, Mohammed Atta and the gang. And 17 of the 19 were from Saudi Arabia. And I said, how does this not have something to do with the Saudi government? I mean, they already knew that the Saudi royal family are the, pardon the language, the head honchos of Islam in Saudi Arabia. They run the mosques at Mecca and so forth. I mean, they are the custodians. And their version is Wahhabism. I didn't hear anybody make the connection because the Saudis are always known as our friends, the Saudis. And the Saudis are our friends, the Saudis, because of oil. Not that I have a problem with oil, but we need it. They had it. And so we defend them. We have air bases there. We've undertaken many missions to defend the Saudis. We've had terrorism against the Saudi governments taking place on in their country against us as well. But nevertheless, I always wondered why nobody was making a connection. Well, it turns out they did, and it was redacted in the official 9/11 committee report, the commission report. 28 pages had redacted data about the ties the hijackers had to actual members of the Saudi government. And it always struck me that this might be something a whole bunch of government officials would like to have nobody know, because there's no way we're going to sever our relationship with the Saudis. Primarily because of oil. Even now, when because of fracking and we're on the road to energy independence as it is, without all that solar and wind that isn't mattering, by the way, a shinola. It is irrelevant to our entire energy profile, the amount of energy we get, efficient or otherwise, from wind and solar and all this so-called clean stuff. It may someday amount to something, but it hasn't yet. It's still a world fueled by oil, fossil fuels, and it's going to be that way for the foreseeable future. So, but nevertheless, it just struck me that look at what we have to hide, cover up, or what have you. And all these years later now, that happened in 2011, it's 2001, so it's basically 15 years. 60 Minutes ran a fascinating report on the 28 pages redacted from the Joint Congressional Report on Intelligence Activities before and after the 9/11 attacks. And apparently, a couple of the hijackers, during their days in Los Angeles, witnesses placed 2 future hijackers at the King Fahd Mosque in the company of Fahad al-Thumairi, a diplomat at the Saudi consulate known to hold extremist views. Later, 9/11 investigators would find him deceptive and suspicious, and in 2003 he'd be denied re-entry to the U.S. for having suspected ties to terrorist activity. And they quoted Tim Romer, who's the Indiana Democrat who ended up being a celebrity of sorts on the commission. This is a very interesting person in the whole 9/11 episode who might have helped in Los Angeles and San Diego with 2 terrorists who didn't know their way around. So, item that it hasn't gotten a whole lot of notice because so many other things in the news are taking precedence over it. I remember I was talking to Mr. Buckley shortly after 9/11, and I looked plaintively at him. I said, Bill, 17 of the night, they're Saudis. He looked at me like I had said something greatly offensive and said, so what? And I said, so what? How can that be ignored? And he said, well, you got individual criminals all over the world that may be American, they have ties to the American government. I said, no, but these guys happen to have the same point of view that the Saudi government does. I mean, how can we just immediately rule it out? And then I got the question of all questions. Well, if you find a connection, you let me know, and then you tell me what anybody's going to do about it. And now it's interesting the way things have played out because we once again find ourselves allied with the Saudis against the Iranians. That used to be. Oh, we're not against, right? I forgot. We're not against the Iranians. Damn it. The time went by. We're not against the Iranians. We're helping them nuke up, and that's why the Saudis are now a little concerned. Here's it just, folks, the coffin in which will be buried the game of football has many nails. There are many nails yet to be hammered in the coffin that will bury football, but another one was just hammered. Here we have Frank McGurty writing in Scientific American. Study finds evidence of brain injury in living NFL veterans. Now, the reason this is news is because the brain damage and injury known as CTE is only discoverable in autopsy. It cannot be diagnosed in a living brain. It can only be found during autopsy. That's why this news is so big. And that is if people choose to believe it. Once again, we have to recognize, or rather, we have to admit science has now been corrupted by politics. There isn't anything pure, or there's very little remaining that is pure. But science is not one of them. Science has been corrupted and polluted by liberalism, just as everything liberalism has touched has been corrupted and polluted, and in some cases perverted. So you have to be suspicious of this, because in virtually everything there is an agenda. Wherever you find liberals and Democrats, you find an agenda. There are no liberals who are docile. Meaning, if you have a group of scientists, and most of them are liberals, they're not just sitting there and when they leave the office they become liberals. Liberalism is guiding their work. Liberalism is informing their work. Liberalism is forming their prejudices. It's inescapable. It's O'Sullivan's Law. Any organization that is not constantly, actively conservative will become liberal. It's to that state that things will descend. Liberalism is not an ascension. You don't raise yourself up to liberalism. You descend and plummet into it. And the only way to avoid it is active conservatism. Don't doubt me. That's why I am so leery of moderates. Moderates are simply liberals in waiting. They're in transit and on the way. Anybody tells you they're not conservative, they're on the way to liberalism, whether they know it or not. And scientists, and it's not just, so many people in our country today, all across the political spectrum, are dependent on funding from other people in order to eat and live. Now, I don't consider having a job funding, but I mean, if you're the recipient of grants, if you run around asking for donations, either as a for-profit or non-profit, then you are feeding at the trough, as opposed to somebody who's literally working. Now, I know that these places have employees and they work, but if the place is funded, then the odds are it has a political purpose, whether it's a nonprofit or not. And that's what happened, has happened to so much of science. People in it, in order to survive, have to be given money for one reason or another to advance their research. And of course, if the money is given, there is an expected outcome. You don't have a lot of moneyed people giving money away and just willing to deal with the results, whatever they may be. If you have somebody funding climate research, the odds are they expect a favorable outcome commensurate with the amount of money they're giving. And so many people are quote-unquote employed in such a fashion these days. Many conservatives, in fact. Many conservatives. That's, to me, has always been a little contradictory. Conservatism stands for what? Among many other things, what does it stand for, Mr. Serdley? I mean, you go out there, you hard work. You don't feed off the government teat. You provide for yourself. You do not become an entitlement into and unto yourself. And yet, there are more and more people who, I can tell the number of people ask you for money. I don't mean, can you loan me $5? No, it's, can you donate X amount so I can continue my work here, or whatever it is. Anyway, I've just become aware of how much of that has become politicized. So here we go, Scientific American. More than 40% of retired NFL players tested with advanced scanning technology showed signs of traumatic brain injury, a much higher rate than the general population. First time this has ever been alleged. Because as we speak, it has always been said, supposedly truthfully, that the incidence of brain trauma and other injury among NFL players is actually below the national average. Well, we can't have that if we're trying to destroy football. If we're trying to create the illusion that football is deadly and dangerous and we're trying to wipe it out as good liberals, because liberalism looks at football and sees everything in it they hate. There are losers, there is pain, there is suffering, there is barbarism, there are wealthy owners that sit up in skyboxes and watch people destroy themselves for their entertainment. It's no different than the old events that used to take place in the Roman Colosseums. It's just despicable. And, of course, the players are looked at as victims of these wealthy plutarchs and oligarchs who are simply seeking a little fame and entertainment. And little did anybody know that what they're doing kills them. So we've got to stop it. And so now, oh, you don't think that's going on? We better wake up, because it's exactly what's propelling this. And I'm just going to remind you again, mark my words, wait until, and it's not far down the road, wait until they introduce the racial component into this. It's going to happen sooner than you... What do I mean? How many African-American owners are there? Zip, zero, nada. What's the percentage of players in the NFL African-American? 75%. Therefore, 75% of all the bad stuff is happening to who? African-Americans. On the football field and within the football plantation. And we find that their lives after the game are, in many instances, depression, it's suicide and any number of things. You just wait till the enemies of football, and they are there. You can't deny that. Wait till and they're timing this. They're aware of it. They're waiting for the right moment. I don't know what it'll be, but they will introduce the racial component to this. And they'll say there are no black owners. There's no Hispanic owners. There are no female owners. It's white guys. And they all happen to be what? Billionaires. Do any of them have CTE? Are any of them committing suicide at age 45? Folks, this is going to happen. And just little stories like this that are the precedents, or the precedents, if you will. More than 40% of retired NFL players tested with advanced scanning technology showed signs of traumatic brain injury, a much higher rate than in the general population, according to a new study of the long-term risks of playing American football. The research, presented at an American Academy of Neurology meeting that began in Vancouver on Monday, is one of the first to provide, quote, objective evidence, unquote, of traumatic brain injury in a large sample of NFL veterans while they are living, said Dr. Francis X. Konidi, one of the study's authors. Konidi, I don't know how he pronounces it, a neurologist at the Florida Center for Headache and Sports Neurology. A neurologist at the Florida Center for Headache and Sports Neurology and a faculty member at the Florida State University College of Medicine said traumatic brain injury was often a precursor to CTE, a degenerative brain disease. What we do know, he says, is that players with traumatic brain injury have a high incidence of going on to develop neurological degenerative diseases later on in life. Chronic traumatic encephalopathy, CTE, has been found in dozens of the NFL's top players after they died. At present, a CTE diagnosis is only possible after death in autopsy. Kennedy said no one has ever looked at this number of living players before. So as I say, the coffin in which will be buried football has many nails, and another one was just hammered.
Rush reveals what's really at stake in the 2016 elections in the April issue of the Limbaugh Letter.
This is a fight between socialism and capitalism, freedom versus tyranny. We're talking about holding on and preserving the country as founded.
Get ready for battle. Subscribe now to the Limbaugh Letter at rushlimbaugh.com. You're listening to the EIB Network.
To the phones we go. George in Rochester, New York. Thank you for waiting, sir. Great to have you on the EIB Network. Hi.
Hey, Rush. I'm really grateful for you taking my call.
You bet, sir.
I just wanted to say that what happened in Colorado, clearly 98% of the people, not only in the state but in the country, had no idea how that worked and what was going to happen. I really just feel like the mask of the beast has been pulled off the American political system. I'm 48 years old. I've always believed that it was possible that the system was rigged, but I always knew in my heart that the voting would right any kind of wrong. But it's totally unacceptable as an American, and I happen to be a Democrat. Stepping over the voters is totally unacceptable, and I just wanted to reach out to my brothers and sisters in Colorado and tell them that I am an American first, and what happened is totally disgusting. That's pretty much what I wanted to say.
So you are in solidarity with the people in California who were disenfranchised and had the right to vote taken away from them, and you feel for them?
Absolutely. Totally unacceptable.
Right.
I'm an American first, and that's all there is to it. parties. I've never voted Republican, but I am an American first, and
Right.
it totally disgusts me. And there's got to be a lot of people out there that feel just like I do.
Okay, George, I appreciate the call, and I'm sure the people of Colorado do too. And we will be back. I saw this alluded to as a rumor about an hour ago. Now it's been officially confirmed by CNN. Megyn Kelly snuck into Trump Tower today. Well, that's the wrong way to put it. It makes it sound like she was stalking. What happened was Trump and Megyn Kelly had a secret meeting at Trump Tower this morning, according to people with knowledge of the matter. Apparently, Megyn Kelly reached out to Trump's office to set up the meeting, and they ended up having lunch. Beyond that, little is known. Representatives for Trump and Fox had no immediate comment. But the meeting raises the possibility of a Kelly-Trump interview sometime in the future. This is a story here from CNN. An NBC reporter, this is what I saw earlier, an NBC reporter spotted Kelly looking incognito and entering Trump Tower shortly before 12 noon. And then there's this, listen, next paragraph. Trump's intense dislike of Kelly has been one of the subplots of his run for president. Trump has essentially said that she started all of this by treating him unfairly during the first GOP debate of the season last August. Do you want to know what happened here? I mean, not at this thing today. Do you want to know what this is all about? Well, I would say I don't know. I mean, but I do know. It's one of these things I can pretty much guess what went down here. Megyn Kelly starts on Fox. She starts out as a reporter, and from the moment she started, there was something about her that attracted attention. She's just one of these people on TV that you notice. And she moved up the ladder of success at Fox. She ended up getting anchor gigs, first at 9 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then eventually, all this took years, and then eventually she gets her 9 p.m. primetime show. And at some point during this career advancement, Trump becomes a fan. And Donald Trump is known to reach out to people in the media. He sends them notes. He sends them encouragement. He just reaches out to them. There's some people that are fascinated by media figures. And I think that my wild guess is that Mr. Trump thought he'd always been nice to her. I'm guessing that he didn't send her critical notes. I'm guessing he didn't send her short little notes or texts or whatever it was, criticizing her. I mean, it was stuff rooted in admiration for her talent or what have you. And I think he was blindsided by her opening question in that first debate. I personally blindsided by it. I think I don't know that they had any kind of a friendship or relationship at all, but my guess is that if he has some kind of contact with her, sends her notes now and then, I don't know if she replies or not. I don't know any of this. I'm just guessing. I could be all wet on this. But my guess is that he figured that obviously she knows who he is, that in all of his notes or whatever, reach out to her, maybe knew her, met her times or two when he was over at Fox. And I'm sure he thought that she didn't have a problem with him and vice versa. Then here comes that first debate and that first question. And I think it blindsided him. And then he probably said, you know what? You know, she's using this to establish her independence. She's using this to show that she's not cowed by anybody. And that's how it all began. That would be my wild guess. And I'll tell you why I think this. I don't just grab this stuff out of thin air. Her first show on her 9 p.m. slot, very first show, might have been her second. The first show okay, let's say first week, but I think it was one of the first two shows. She had Cruz as her top of the hour guest at a time when Cruz was doing something in the Senate, filibustering or something, and everybody angry and hating on Cruz. So she gets him as a guest, and her first question to him is, what is it like to be the most hated man in America? And his response was, Megan, I just want to congratulate you. This is a terrific achievement. We're so, and she cut him off halfway through it because I think she was establishing that she was in no way affected by personal relationships with the people she's covering, that she's not going to be biased. She's not going to be friendly with some and unfriendly to others based on whether they know her, whether they're nice to her. And I think she went, she out of the gate established that she is totally, completely independent. What? No. See, there's some women on the other side of the glass. She just did, and they're using the B word. And if I'm describing a man doing this, you would not at all say the guy was a BA. You wouldn't. You'd say, this guy's doing it right. Okay. No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't say he was a penis. Anyway, look, I probably shouldn't even delve into it because I don't even know. I'm just wild guessing on all this. How does this happen? Anyway, whatever's going on today looks like it might be a hatchet-burying attempt. But who knows? It may fall apart and may not work. Trump can have a press conference this afternoon. She came and she begged me to love her again. And I said, you're just like Lion Ted. We don't know what he's going to do. Anyway, folks, I have to take a brief timeout. Do not hold me into that. I'm just wild guessing. Intelligence guided by experience with the possibility it can be totally old.
You're listening to Rush Limbaugh,
the big voice on the right,
on the EIB network.
And it was going to be this big whoop-de-doo. And to expand her career portfolio and all that and take it beyond Fox News to the Fox Broadcast Network. And like Barbara Walters used to interview trees and stuff before the Academy Awards. And she had fascinating people, that kind of thing. Could be that she's only trying to get Trump for that. Make up to break up kind of stuff. Who knows, folks? This is my wild guess. Susie in Pittsburgh, you're next. It's great to have you on the program.
Well, I'm so excited to talk to you, Rush, and I just wanted to tell you I passed up going to a Trump rally here in Pittsburgh right now in order to be able to keep you, stay on the line here and talk to you without losing my signal. So I wanted to also just say hi to my grandkids who are huge Rush fans and said Grammy knows everything, but Rush knows even more. So
I love it.
That's the line in our family. My question, Rush, is do you think if Trump is the candidate, he would be smart to pick someone like Cruz? I know you've been asked about whether they can bury the hatchet, but whether he'd be a good choice because he needs somebody with some political gravitas and foreign policy background, but someone who's also been seen as an insurgent.
Let me throw you some names out here because there's a story here from the Daily Caller. Another Rules Committee member, Republican National Committee, has said, Randy Evans, the same guy that talked about how Trump could, if he gets to 1,100, he's going to win this. He said that a Trump Kasich ticket or a Cruz-Rubio ticket could either or both happen at the convention as both candidates try to nail down the nomination. I don't know about Hillary and Elizabeth Warren. That's two women. I mean, anything's possible.
Yeah.
But what do you think? What do you think about, who are you for, Trump or Cruz?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I started out as a Parsons/Santorum fan, and and then I went to Rubio, and then I slowly dwindled down to between Cruz and Trump. My husband is a Trump fan, and I like some things about Donald very much.
Are you going to vote for the nominee?
I'm going to vote for the nominee.
Okay.
I'm definitely, because we just cannot have Hillary and Matt or Bernie.
Well, there you go.
And so I'll work for whoever. I've actually thought about volunteering my services. I had worked in a political office for Senator Santorum for 12 years, and I've thought I would like to work for whoever it is for free, just so we don't get Hillary.
Susie, that's the right answer. You're going to the nominee. That's going to be crucial to beating Hillary, which is going to be the objective.
This is the big one. Rush on the EIB network.
That's it, folks. I don't know where it goes, but it's gone. 3 hours in the can. You can relive it all at rushlimbaugh.com each and every day. You can read the transcripts, so you really never, ever forget anything. You can re-access the audio or ditto cam video, all at rushlimbaugh.com. And meantime, start working on tomorrow within a couple of hours and be revved and ready when we get back here in 21 hours. Thanks so much for being with us.